What's good, everybody? My name is Hamza,
I'm RIDL.
and this is the Drums and Ammo Now You Know show, coming to you from Space Mother headquarters in sunny Portland, Oregon.
I have a very special guest. This guy's a legendary hip-hop producer. He's got an absolutely incredible catalog of instrumental music, along with having produced for people like Murs and Eli. Please give a warm welcome to Elusive. What's up, Elusive?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing well, man.
All right.
Let's start off at the beginning. Can you give us a little background on yourself for any viewers that are new to your art?
Well, I've been putting out music for over 25 years. Started out making music with the Living Legends in Oakland. I've worked with like Project Load, Freestyle Fellowship, and through all that time, I've been putting out beat tapes. So I've been doing the instrumental stuff for that long as well. And I'm still doing it.
Nice.
So I'm a little bit curious about what your sort of exposure to music growing up was like. Have you always been a musician? Was there something that happened? Was there a lot of music in your house growing up?
Well, my grandparents are jazz musicians. My grandmother's a jazz singer, and my grandfather played the drums and the trumpet. So he taught me how to play the drums when I was probably like 5, and my brother the trumpet when he was like 4. So we both went to like music schools through elementary and junior high, and he stayed with the music through high school and stuff. I went like to math and science schools, but I still was like in the band and stuff. It just wasn't at that high of a level.
Okay.
But I started getting into making beats like my freshman year in college.
When do you think you started noticing that your beats were at a certain quality that made you take it a little bit more seriously as far as career path wise?
Well, pretty much at the beginning, I had made a couple of like just stuff at other people's houses who had equipment, and we were playing demos already, like probably the first year that I started making beats. I didn't even own equipment. I was just using other people's equipment, and we were playing demos for people like A&Rs at like Delicious Vinyl and stuff like that. And they had me and my brother recording demos in big studios already. So pretty much from the beginning, I knew that it was something that I could tap into, not necessarily as a career, but I think just seeing my grandparents do it, I knew it was possible because they were gigging into their 80s. So it was like, oh, okay. I knew that being a musician as your occupation was possible, but it wasn't something that I was even thinking about. It was just something that I kind of knew could happen, and I just kind of pushed for that.
With that being said, do you think there was like a defining moment that you feel like really like pushed you over that precipice, or was it just sort of a slow burn the whole way?
I'd say when I first recorded with the Living Legends, we recorded at Hyde Street Studios, and I pressed up vinyl for that first project. And me and Merce went to this distribution company called TRC, and Peanut Butter Wolf and Rasco were the buyers there. So we brought them the vinyl, and Peanut Butter Wolf ordered 300 like right away, and called me back in like 3 weeks and was like, oh, we sold out of all of them, bring me another 500. So it was like, oh, okay. So I mean, at that point I was already able to start paying my bills and my rent and stuff with the music money. So at that point it was like, oh, I can just keep putting out records and pressing up. As long as I felt like I had a record a year and was pressing up vinyl, I could push that project out through the whole year pretty much with those distribution hookups. So
how do you feel adding the pressure of money ended up affecting your work?
Right. I've never really felt that pressure. I never felt like I've ever compromised what I've done to get a bag. I think most of the artists that I've looked up to and who have inspired me have never been like, they never really sold out or anything. So I kind of always took that stance that I always was just going to kind of do it my way. So I've never felt the pressure to make a certain kind of music or do stuff that I didn't want to. Even when I've done placements and stuff like that, it's always been stuff that was already made. So it's just people picking stuff that I already made. So I've never really felt like I've had to make stuff.
And like, I guess like having those sort of passive income streams takes off the pressure of like having to constantly be dropping new music and touring
Right.
and, you know,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. You know, the
right,
music industry's changed. So,
right.
you know, I do feel like I definitely put out more music now,
Okay.
but there's no pressure to it. It's just, I feel like I'm just turning out stuff that I like. So it's just kind of in motion, you know?
Do you think that's one of the big like changes that you've seen and being a member of, you know, the sort of greater music industry, that you have to really increase the volume of content that you put out? Or is that just more of a kind of growth as an artist thing?
It's just a growth as an artist thing. But I do see that does help,
Right.
because people's attention spans are so short and people want new music, you know,
Right.
consistently. So, but yeah, I don't have any pressure with doing that, or feel like I have to stay relevant. It's just, that's just kind of my flow right now. Like I mean, I probably will slow down at some point, but I don't know, when the fish are frying, it's like keep it
Sure.
going.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, you have an impressive catalog. You're quite a prolific producer. I think that's really cool. Um,
thank you, man.
yeah,
Appreciate
it
that.
spans a lot of different styles and a lot of different sort of influences that you can hear pop in and out.
Hmm.
I was just yesterday listening through your newest record. We actually caught you at a show in up here in Portland a few weeks ago,
That's right.
and yeah, I think you played a lot of stuff that was off of your new record that has just come out,
Yeah.
and it was fantastic, man.
Thank you.
So with that, you know, I want to kind of think like you've got all these different sort of influences that are at play in your music. Is there something that you feel like is this either be stylistically or sort of vibe that is your like primary guiding light,
Yeah.
and other things sort of fit into it? Like what kind of yeah, what kind of music really like gets you going, and how much does that play into the music that you make?
I'd say jazz music has always been the biggest influence. Just even from when I was sampling, it was 99% probably jazz records, you know. So that's probably my biggest influence. But you know, jazz is so encompassing that it's like, yeah. But I'd say that's the backbone of everything I do, comes from that, for sure. Whether it's rhythms or harmonies or melodies, or, you know, yeah, definitely.
So, what are some of the favorite records that you've worked on, and or favorite artists as well?
Working with rappers and musicians, it's kind of similar, just because you're creating this kind of backbone and creating space for them to play over. So it's kind of the same. So I don't know. I don't know if I have any really favorite. I mean, most of the
Anything? Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, most of the people that I've worked with have all been people that I've kind of had some type of either rapport with, or just heard their stuff and became a fan. So it's like that's pretty much
Any projects that stick out as having had like a sort of different creative process than you were used to, or you know, came
right.
to you from a different approach?
Probably when I started doing, like, working with more musicians, and, you know, getting more than one musician on the track and kind of building stuff that way. Because then it's like you're building, you're also leaving room for more harmonies and melodies. So it becomes pretty way deeper of even just the production aspect of it.
Right.
Like even just like the level of like creating bridges and creating like just whole different parts that go off into totally different places. Like, you also have to be able to work with musicians that can work with that kind of stuff too. So it's like it can't just be people that, you know, can't hear something and expand on it.
Right.
So
No, they definitely
um
all dig the slumpy stuff.
right. Right, no, for sure. Yeah, you can't be working with a bunch of squares. So but yeah, no, I mean, I I I feel like all my projects pretty much kind of represent a certain point where I've just been at in a creative place. So it's like, that's why I don't really like hold on to music too much. I just kind of put it out, because that's kind of how I look at it. So everything, when I hear something, even when it takes me a second to kind of go, wait, I've heard that before, I go, oh yeah, that's one of my songs. And it's like that when I hear that and then I realize that it's mine, it kind of takes me back to not even just what I was thinking then, but more so just like definitely a vibe. Like it's really weird. Like, yeah.
Cool. You mentioned that there was a point where you were kind of moving into using more instrumentalists.
Yeah.
These days, with the sort of releases that are upcoming, what's the breakdown? Like, what percentage of that is sort of built from scratch, instrument wise, and what percentage is sample based?
Well, I haven't sampled any records probably in 3 years.
Oh, well, there you
Oh
go.
wow.
Okay, that's cool.
So everything that's come out in the past, yeah, probably since 2018, uh, yeah, 2018, 2019 has all been me creating it on from scratch.
Yeah,
No samples.
very
Very
cool.
interesting.
Um, yeah, I don't even have a record player right now. Crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
So, at the show, I noticed you have a lot of different like textural elements in your drums that like kind of made it. They seem very like prevalent. Like you can hear everything, but it was very subtle too. How much do you feel like the textural elements plays into the sound that you're trying to create?
I think it's like a big part of it. It just it's the first thing that I probably start with are just textures, and then that kind of, I feel like textures just it kind of even kind of helps me place my rhythms just on certain waves and things that I'm hearing in the textures. So especially when you start getting into like the tempo you're gonna work in, and then you start like working with the pitch of the textures and stuff too. It just kind of lays out a template in my head that I can hear certain rhythms a lot easier.
Okay.
There was an album I put out that was actually called Textures,
Oh,
and that was like I think 2017 or something. And I think since then that became like a huge part of my music that I feel like I can't leave out. Like even when I think about leaving that stuff out, it's like I always go back at the end and maybe add even more. So it's like, yeah, it's a big part. It's a funny story. I have a funny story about that.
Yeah.
I was doing something for a what's it called? Oh, Boiler Room, and they sent a sound man to the Alpha Pup Studios, and so I was playing my source, and the guy for like 10 minutes he was going, man, there's this crackle in the thing. So he kept on trying to change the wires and stuff. So he's like, see, you hear it? And he gave it to me, and I go, oh, that's in the song. So this guy thought that the audio was all messed up, and he was trying to like change wires and stuff for
Oh,
like
he's
10 or
probably going
15 minutes.
crazy.
He was going nuts, and he was like sweating and stuff. And like when I said that, and I was laughing, but it was it was one of the funniest things.
Fuck, I'm gonna lose my job.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. He was like, it was like, yeah, it was, the
Wild.
pressure was on. It was funny.
Yeah, I noticed at the show and also on your record that not just the heavy use of textures, but also them being motifs that came back and were repeated across the
Yeah,
course of the record.
yeah.
Yeah, and in the show, and I thought that was really cool. Are those kind of like album-wide motifs? To me, that speaks of like someone thinking of a whole album, which I
Yes.
find kind of rare these days in a
Right.
sort of in an age of singles. Do you really feel like the album is a big part of your creativity?
I think that's it's crazy. I think that that's a big part of why I make as much music as I do, because I'm able to start with a project. And I mean, that's how I start everything, is with a whole project in mind.
Okay.
It's never just a song where I'm just working on random songs. It's always like with a project in mind. So I'm always starting with like this template in my brain, and then I just kind of work through it. And then there's that completion of feeling like, okay, this is done. And then I just go on to the next thing. But there's definitely motifs in albums, and that, yeah, that's how I create my music. Is, I mean, even for when I pick singles, it's like that's the last thing that I do after making the record. Like it's like the hardest thing for me to do, because I'm just like, it's to me it's like not being able people being able to hear the whole album right
Out of
away.
context.
It's out of context. Yeah, like
Right,
I don't feel
right.
like there's a context. Like it's like I'm just trying to pick a song out of something and make it mean something outside of what it means with throughout the album. So yeah, that's why it's difficult
I
for
mean,
me.
at least you drop records as fast as most people drop singles. So
Right.
Got
No,
that.
that's yeah. No, that's like
I get
that's
it.
the drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
What do you feel like the creative process has been in this last album you've been working on?
Um, the last album I worked on, a lot of it was usually I start with the drums, but this one was a lot of click tracks where I just had clicks going on the metronome, and I was working on the harmonies first. So a lot of it was chord progressions over just click tracks, and then I would add the drums after that. So I was kind of letting the harmonies, which was a cool process. Uh, but I've already gotten back to the other process of just doing the drums first. But yeah, it's kind of weird that I did that. And it was kind of it was a it was actually something that I thought about trying. So that's what I did with that project.
Do you think that because of that, the album as a whole is more like harmonically driven than rhythmically driven?
It is. It definitely is. Yeah, way more so. Way more so. Yeah, that's crazy.
And is it your brother who's the one playing trumpet on a lot of the stuff?
Yes, my brother plays the
Awesome.
trumpet. We had an album come out in 2000, that Celestial Impressions,
Mhm.
and he played on like some of the stuff that I recorded with Living Legends. Like he played trumpet on a song that I had with Eli back then, and he had some stuff on some interludes that I had on some of those albums.
Awesome.
So he's been there from the beginning doing stuff with me, and he took a break a little while from just doing music a little bit, but we're back to doing it. So he's on a lot of the new stuff I've been doing for the past like 3 or 4 years.
Awesome. Seems like you've been playing with your brother for a long time. Is that like something that really keeps you
Yeah.
guys close beyond just being brothers? Is he someone that you think will always be a part of your musical life?
Yeah, it's always because there's nothing like making music with your family, and yeah, there's something that's unspoken, and we don't even have to really say much to create music. It's the easiest thing to do. So yeah.
Really cool. Really cool. Do you engineer your own music? Do you mix it all, master it all?
I do. I the first 5 or 6 years I was on Alpha Pup, Daddy Kev was doing it.
Okay.
He I think I mixed the first one, he mastered it, and then after that he just started mixing and mastering my stuff. The last like 4 albums I've done myself, just with the pandemic and
Sure.
just making it harder. But yeah, it's something that I'm able to do, so I do it.
Yeah.
But
Do you find that that's like harder or easier? I know some people are pretty split on it. Some people hate engineering their own stuff. Some people can't not do it that way.
yeah, I'm kind of in between. Like I don't look forward to doing it, but it's not something. I mean, I just look at it as something part of the process. But it is something that I know is less creative and just more technical. So it is something that I'm not too fond of, but it's not. But I know that it's something that I have to do to get the music done. So it's just something that I look at that I'm gonna spend a couple of days just working on, and then maybe a week tweaking like some little things. But I never get too crazy with it, and just too like I'm not too hard on myself about it. Like I just try to make it sound as good as I can, and then leave it at that. I don't try to like get too crazy with it.
Right.
I mean, I've had Daddy Kev mix and master an album of mine in one day, and been cool with it. So it's nothing I spend too much time thinking about.
So for all the kids on SoundCloud and releasing their own music, figuring out how to do that, how important do you feel sound quality and professional mixing and mastering is in the process of getting out in the world and pushing your stuff?
This being to people who don't necessarily have the like full set of engineering skills.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't let it stop you from putting out music. I mean, it just depends. I mean, there's levels of that too. I mean, I've heard songs that aren't mixed the greatest, but it still sounds okay. Like, you know, that stuff I think about, like, if it's not mixed that great, there's probably certain people ears who probably can't handle that and won't give it a second listen because if it doesn't sound that great. So, you know, you're probably lessening the amount of people that would probably give your song a second listen, maybe, possibly. But I don't know. I don't, you know, that's why when I listen to my mixes and master, sometimes I'm like, and then people will be like, this sounds great. And I'll be like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, I guess it does. Like maybe I'm being a hard, right. Maybe I'm being too objective. So, you know, it's something that I, you know, but I have heard songs that are mixed so badly that it's like, oh yeah, like I just can't, my ears can't handle that snare being like that loud in my ear. Like, so, you know, there's levels to it, but I wouldn't let that be something that stops you from putting out music necessarily, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Because
So
just because, you know, I've had stuff mixed and mastered at 96 kilohertz, and it's like once you put it on Spotify, it's getting smushed down to some level that I'm basically like, I'm the only person that's going to hear it in this quality anyway. So, you know, and then people are listening to it on their laptops and with no headphones or, you know, little earbuds. So it's like but you know, having a good thing to start with is probably better once you start listening the level of what you're listening to it too. So
and I would imagine you're probably doing a lot of that sort of stuff during your sound designing and producing process to get like the sounds really, you know, most of the way there.
Yeah, like that, I'm doing all the EQing and stuff in my mixing and as soon, yeah. So a lot of my mixes come out to where I don't have to tweak it too much.
Nice. Now, these days, I guess sort of as an offshoot of that, we live in an age where it's so easy to put music out, right? Like anybody can put music out in 5 minutes. And, you know, you mentioned not, you know, letting the sort of like nitty gritty of perfection stopping people from putting music out. How do you feel about the sort of general volume of music that's being put out into the world these days? Do you think that that is a plus for the industry or for music in general? Do you think that that's a minus? There's a lot less barrier to entry.
Right. You know, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's like I don't know. It's I don't know. I mean, the music industry is so weird now just because, I mean, I couldn't imagine being somebody that just starting out putting out music now just because it's so number based.
Right.
And you know, and it's there for everybody to see. It's like it's really a big, you know, even people that will ask for my Spotify link that are just casual listeners, and I send it to the link to them, and maybe the first thing they say to me is like, wow, you have a lot of people that listen to your music. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy that this is just a casual listener, that's the first thing they like look at is the number.
Spotify makes sure to prominently display that number, you know?
Right. Which is crazy because I, you know, when I talk to my label about things and they tell me things that they say a big problem is artists buying fake plays and stuff. And even it's a thing that they have to send out an email each month telling people, hey, don't do that. And they say there's still people that will still do it because,
like,
you know,
like
there's
artists on the label buying their own plays.
Yeah, or just, you know, people that even they distribute or whatever. So it's because it's a, you know, once you do that, you're not going to get in a playlist like Spotify probably like red flags anything. Yeah, like you're done. So you're really, you know, but I know artists in the EDM, they depend on a lot of those numbers because that's what a lot of the bookers, not necessarily I think in the hip hop world, I think it's less about that, but I know that in EDM it's a lot about like how many, like that's the first thing that a lot of bookers will look at. So I think everything is kind of like skewed on those type of levels. So it's like, you know, when I think about how much music comes out, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of am part of that because I'm taking advantage of the fact that it's kind of the Wild West. There are no rules. It's like you used to have to put out a single, put out a video, put out, you know, there were certain things that if you wanted to be doing it at a certain level, you had to do. And it's like, now it doesn't, you don't even, you can just drop, like you said, singles every Friday, or, you know, it's like, or you can just drop an EP and, you know, and then 2 weeks later drop a whole nother album. Or so I think it's, I think it's just kind of, it's the Wild West. Do whatever you want and just, whatever, find what works for you, really. It's like if you're putting out a bunch of music and nobody's listening to it, maybe you might want to slow down and rethink what you're doing, or, but if you're putting out a bunch of music and people are reacting to it and your music's growing and your fans are growing, then maybe you might want to stick with that. So it's, but I don't really have any thoughts on like,
Right.
like being a gatekeeper and trying to make
Sure,
rules
yeah,
for
yeah.
what's going on. It's like,
That's good.
I just kind of see what's going on, and I just kind of, do whatever I feel comfortable doing within that realm.
Yeah, so how do you feel like apps like Splice or any app that basically sells sample packs or any of that, how do you feel that that helps or takes away from what you do or what your process is as far as...
Well, I have sample packs on Splice, so I don't, I actually think it's, it's fine if people want to go on and search for certain drums, and I think it's, there's a lot of tools and a lot of things that make it easier to make your music sound better now. So I think, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's, anything that helps you and get inspired, maybe that's a good thing. So, and if you have a certain thing in your sound in your head and you don't have access to that instrument right then, that's kind of what hip hop is based on,
Right.
So I look at it, it's just another form of having like somebody who has a huge record collection and can just sample anything they want. That's kind of what that library is. It's the same thing, it's just somebody chopped it and put it up there for you.
Yeah.
So there's, but I understand how some people feel that kind of takes away from the experience of actually, finding it off a record or but I think it's all the same. So,
Okay.
so I don't use Splice, but I have stuff on there. So,
Sure.
But that's part of my thing, is that I enjoy, thinking of something in my head and then trying to figure out how to create it.
Do you enjoy the sharing of your sounds? Is that gratifying to you in the same way or a similar way that putting out music is?
It's different, but it is, it's cool that when people, say certain things like, hey, I had your sound pack and I used it on some tracks. I've had people that send me tracks, they go, hey, check it out, I used your drums, that stuff. Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. It's different because I'm not creating it, and it's something that I've already made. But yeah, no, it's cool that people can take what they, because some people, they have certain things that they like about someone's music that really inspires them. So being able to give that people and people have access to it, I think that's a cool thing.
We're approaching the tail end of the interview. Is
Okay.
there anything that you want to promote? Let the people know what you got in the bag.
At the end of January, I had an album called Virtual Essence come out, which was more on some like it was like a 10-track project with a bunch of musicians on it.
Fantastic.
And then I just had a new single come out on Tuesday, called Auditory Story. This is from an album called Stimuli, which is just, there's no musicians on it. It's just all my stuff. And that second single comes out March 23rd. That'll be called Blueberry. And then I have the album Stimuli coming out April 8th. Yeah, and then I'll have some another album probably coming out in June or July, and then something coming out in the fall. So I'll have another 2 projects at least coming out this year after this next one in April. So.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Can you tell the people where they can find you as far as social media?
My Instagram is Elusive Cosmo, and there you can always, I always have my link tree to all my music on all the DSPs and stuff, and you can find whenever I'm selling t-shirts or tapes or anything, like, I always post it on my Instagram. So that's the main thing I work off of.
Dope. All right. Any parting bits of sage wisdom or advice to musicians who are on, starting their journey these days?
I'd say just, keep an open mind. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. And dream big. And, if you want to do this, dream big, and maybe look at artists that you're inspired by and see how they do it, and take the things that you admire about them, and put that to your hustle and your grind. And I mean, I hate those words, but put it to that, and figure it out. There's no one there's no one way to do this, and there's a lot of people aren't gonna hold your hand, so a lot of it is trial and error. So yeah, just don't give up. I've been doing it for 25 years and I haven't figured it out. I've just done it my way, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So
All right.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Elusive. Again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking me to do this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, do you have any words to wrap up?
No, thanks so much for chatting with us, man. It was really interesting. It's nice to get to see a view inside your head for a moment. Really appreciate it. Coming out.
And hopefully I'll see you guys around Portland.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Should come through and check out the studio sometime.
Yes, I'll do that. I'm down to do that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, cool.
All right, man.
Well,
Talk to you soon.
My name is HMZA.
And I'm RIDL.
And now you know.
Now you know.
Hey, thank you
Peace
so
out.
much.